All right. We're live.
Yes.
Everybody, are we here? StreamYard says I have 0. Okay. Hopefully everybody's coming in. Most of the people here probably know who you are, but can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Edwin. I'm a YouTuber. I've done YouTube for many years. I started out as comedy, and then eventually I got into doing more controversial topics. Well, not controversial topics, but more so covering controversies. And yeah, I guess as far as like the Marilyn Manson thing, that was, I mean, should I talk about that part?
Oh, I mean, whatever. That's fine. You seem like you grew up with YouTube, though. I mean,
you're
pretty young, and it seems like it was part of your life.
People think I'm young. I mean, I guess maybe I'm relatively young. I'm actually 33.
Okay.
I was waiting for more surprise, but no. So yeah, my YouTube account, I opened it up in 2005. So yeah, I've been on YouTube since I was in high school. So I've seen it all change and evolve throughout the years. It's crazy. I mean, I haven't been like a YouTuber. It hasn't been my job since probably around, I don't know, maybe like 6 or so years. I guess I could call it my job comfortably, which is nice. But it's of course quite stressful to be your own boss and everything. It's not as nice as people might think. But I like to kind of cover topics that aren't as talked about, or just like, give perspectives that I feel I can offer that are unique to wider audiences that, I've been happy to have been able to grow.
Of course. And let's be honest, you're not going to attract an audience if you just state the same thing as everybody else does all the time. So a little controversy goes a long way to growing an audience. I mean, we're not a charity, and we do want to get some kind of traction. So on that note, okay, we'll start off with, as a launching point, you did a video late 2020, I believe December, and it's about Marilyn Manson. Really well put together, by the way. You have excellent craft. Your presentation's phenomenal. Much cleaner edited program than anything I do. I'm a hack who gets behind a microphone. But I noticed you did that microphone or that show or episode or whatever, and then you vanished for a year. So was that like a mic drop, or what happened?
Oh, well, actually, so yeah, I haven't really so that channel, I kind of like set my standards up for myself kind of high, and that kind of put a lot of pressure on myself. And so I'm kind of like subconsciously, like, I kind of scared of my own channel to go on that one, because I do have this other channel called Homeboy Edwin, which is a lot more lax. Because live streaming is a lot more easier than putting together a lot of research and editing and all that stuff, doing it nice and neat, like you saw. It's a different vibe than something you see on this channel, that's Homeboy Edwin stuff. That's why I have even Homeboy Edwin's like relaxed, whatever. Like, I don't want to set expectations. Like, I'm trying to do the opposite of the Edwin's Generation channel, which, I'm happy to have it as my portfolio. But yeah, ever since that video, I've only posted, I think, 2 other videos, and that was already in 2020. But yeah, it was mostly like, I did get into like some personal controversy and stuff. I got my Twitter hacked, and like I was like, some online stalker and like all this stuff, and going through some personal life as well, like my family. But other than that, like, I'm hopefully gonna get back into that channel, and do hope to follow up on story like in a neat way, because I am doing some live streams covering lightly some of, like, the topic of Marilyn Manson, but not as heavy, because also I do see a lot of people covering the lawsuit, and I'm like, well, I don't want to do what everybody else is doing. So I'm kind of trying to do something unique, and seeing like, okay, so I'm kind of like, I started off with the Colonel Kurtz video, seeing like with the facts, and I'm like, okay. Because I do feel like a lot of things do go uncontested, and I'm like, okay, you want to reach out to me? Okay, yeah, everybody should check me as well. And I welcome that. So that's how I started as far as the live stream channel. And yeah, I'm glad that she was able to come on my channel as well. And but yeah, basically how I started the Marilyn Manson video, though, I was suggested the story throughout the year of 2020, and it wasn't like something I could commit to, because
when in 2020, if you don't mind.
When what?
When during 2020? Was it like summer, fall?
A little bit before summer. I had like a friend in real life that, like, because like internet people had already made a lot of connections, that Evan Rachel Wood is talking about Marilyn Manson, because there was a lot of connections that you could kind of tell. And but like for me, it seemed like too risky, or like it's not really, worth it. But then it wasn't until the interview that Marilyn Manson had with Metal Hammer magazine that I was like, this is kind of okay. Well, like it's weird to me that like the magazine was warned not to bring her up without them even saying anything. They're like, what? Like, why is this so sensitive? Because obviously this is 2020 before she ever came out with anything or anything like that. So I was like, oh, okay. Now the story gets interesting, because like he hung up the phone, or it was cut off, but like he wanted the piece from Metal Hammer magazine pulled. So like it seemed kind of strange that he's kind of
is it though? I mean, seriously, is it though? Because there are some relationships. Like I could be wrong. I don't know for sure, but I imagine that if Brad Pitt's doing an interview, he might be like, "Don't bring up Angelina Jolie. If you want to talk to me again, don't bring her up."
Right.
And I could see his people saying that, or the reverse. So I could see Angelina Jolie saying, "Don't bring that son of a bitch up, because I just can't stand him."
Right.
Or Johnny Depp wasn't talking much about Amber Heard. So is it really necessarily, and we're not claiming any kind of abuse there or anything, right? We're just saying, hey, I can't stand my ex's guts. So I'm just questioning if that's a really unusual.
Well, that wasn't even the only thing. It was more so also the funny part, like the follow up, because after that, they were like, okay, well, it wasn't the end of the communication. Like after that, Manson's team was like, okay, fine, we'll answer some of your questions. And then the way they answered also, so like, it added on, like the way they answered the questions also felt like a lot of misses. But yeah, I mean, that is a solid point. And I guess also for me though, because Marilyn Manson has always been like a provocateur, like a shock rocker,
Sure.
Whether he's like a shock rocker in his performance and his art, he'll shock you because you'll realize that, oh wow, he's actually kind of intelligent in the way he answers questions in interviews and stuff. He's an intelligent man.
So you know what, on that note, it's kind of weird because I am older than you. Manson and I are like a year apart in age. So it's sort of weird to me because I'm like, well, I expect that because I grew up with Alice Cooper. I grew up with Gene Simmons. I grew up with David Bowie. And these guys,
what were they like?
They're out there. They're shocking. But guess what? Pretty intelligent. You don't get on top of the game without having skills. He's been at it for 30 years. That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Well, let's see. No, I did forget what I was saying, though. Yeah. So, like, I guess they wanted to talk about cancel culture, essentially. And then they were kind of asking, like, are you afraid it's going to come for you kind of thing? Or I don't know exactly what the question was, but he kind of was just like, I don't want to talk about it. So to me, like, I think it's worth, like, kind of criticizing, like, wait, so this man that wants to push the envelope, provoke people, constantly, like,
Sure.
criticize, and all of a sudden he's scared of some, like, an innocent question, and like the way he kind of like walks around things doesn't really seem to follow the same narrative of like, oh yeah, I put a gun up to this guy's Spin magazine's mouth, and like, oh yeah, I the Christianity's fascism, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't really like. So that's just kind of the thing. Like my videos are more like I try to put a lighthearted spin, and I'm kind of like, what? Like, this doesn't really like add up. And of course, in that video, nobody had come out, so I was kind of trying to connect the dots. Like, it does kind of seem like she's talking about him, and yeah, I was kind of analyzing it. So obviously, it was very much beforehand.
Okay, well, and I think it's why I think the timeline is so interesting. Is you did, well, while you were on with Colonel Kurtz, you did mention that you did talk to Ilmagor once. Was this prior to your video, or was it sometime after your video?
No, it was in January. So
of 2021 or 2022?
2021. Yeah. So
okay.
After the video, I talked to her, and that's when she told me that, like, she didn't tell me anything that isn't known now. She's basically told me that they were in touch with the FBI, and I'll admit that in her tone, it sounded like she was sure like something would happen sooner than obviously nothing has happened, So,
well, yeah, the FBI, obviously that's a whole nother subject that's going to come up. And you're kind of, to me, if I had put together the piece, honestly, and that's part of why I want to have you on here, I would be worried about everything that's come out since, because there's a whole lot. Those filings aren't necessarily 100% factual. Obviously, they're going to support Manson's side, but they're illuminating, very illuminating. And very troublesome. And the documentary itself. So I'm going to stay with 2020. In the documentary itself, they had the what was it, group? I don't know, support session. It wasn't really a therapy
I don't know if they
session.
labeled it, but obviously it is meant to be kind of a therapeutic, the cathartic kind of thing, I would say, right?
Except it doesn't resemble any kind of therapy. And if anything, we've been covering that, and it's a problem when you have all these people talking about somebody who coincidentally all come out on the same day in February. Of course, when they're talking in their session, there's cameras. And I always wonder, it's like, do I need cameras around while I'm seeking group therapy? That seems a little not cool. And did that give you any kind of pause?
Well, I guess, see, your approach is different. Like your critical approach is different than my critical approach, because I am critical of that film or 2-part documentary, whatever people want to call it. First of all, I'm not very trusting of HBO ever since they completely did that flop of a piece against Michael Jackson. Like, that's completely terrible. Like, at least when you have something like Phoenix Rising, like the title says it's gonna be, have a strong bias for Evan Rachel Wood because it's in the title, right? But sorry, not to derail with Michael Jackson.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah,
fine.
Yeah, and and like, because sorry, now I got Michael Jackson always triggers my mind to start thinking about all the crap that's but yeah, basically
I had one of his lawyers on, actually.
Who, Tom Mesereau, or
no, the one who sued the Britain and got it pulled. The guy who screwed over Princess Di, I forgot his name. Same guy who got fired. He was with Alec Baldwin recently. But
Bashir guy.
Bashir, yeah. Martin Bashir.
Were you talking to him?
I wasn't talking to Martin Bashir. I was talking to Michael Jackson's lawyer, who got the video that Bashir did removed from everything.
That's epic. But yeah, sorry. Right. So yeah, I was critical in that like, I felt like, because you were asking, like, and I'm also asking the same thing, like, what exactly was that, right? Like, and I like to do videos that will kind of bring things that people can understand. Like, I want to be as comprehensive as possible. And when I saw that part of the film, especially that part, or I just didn't understand what really the point was, other than to show that, yeah, okay, he may have other victims, but like, it was presented in a way that it wasn't properly introduced. Like, not everybody in the room was introduced. And I understand it's possible that some people didn't want to be on camera, didn't want to say things, but like, it felt awkward. And that was kind of my perception, because like, people, I didn't really know what people were there to say, other than, I guess, back up Evan. So yeah, it kind of felt like kind of just thrown in there. Which is,
dare I say, problematic. I mean, you are talking about accusations with multiple people together in a session, and I won't say conspiracy, but it could be a cousin. I'm just saying.
I can see where you come from.
It's right there. I'm just looking at what they're putting out.
See, and the issue is because, like, yeah, I can't exactly like say, look, I don't believe. See, it's been a while since I watched it, but like, I don't know. It doesn't stand out to me what the other people said in the room as far as their allegations and stuff, or what their stories were, right? It was obviously very Evan focused. And I guess that is kind of an issue, because it's like, well, you don't know what to make of it, right? And I think that is kind of what my issue with the documentary was. It was kind of scattered. It's like, you don't know what to make of it.
And I would really, obviously you don't have time to watch everything in the world, so you don't have to watch my video breaking it down. Go watch the documentary yourself. Just sit back and just watch it and look at the way they are interacting, because they're not actually just sharing. In my opinion, they're one-upping each other. Like, oh yeah, he did this to you. Oh, he did this to me. And they're finishing each other's sentences. And that was something that was pointed out, that if it was actually a therapy session, a group therapy session, that person will be thrown out of the room, or they'd be attacking each other, because it's very verboten that you interrupt a person when they're sharing, something. This is really intimate, horrible stuff that they're talking about. And to do it in a trivial manner is offensive.
Well, and I'm more inclined to, instead of go to that, I kind of more inclined to ask questions, like, because obviously when they film something, like, even when they film anything, you probably these probably spent like at least 5 hours in that room, and we only get to see like a few minutes. And I'm more inclined to ask, like, okay, so did they mic up and camera right away, or like how exactly did they get to the scenario, right? Because yeah, I definitely see like that was awkward, and like whoever edited it's like kind of, is that the best you could have gotten, and maybe they got even better conversations off camera, and like, oops, because also part of the reason why I actually went offline last year is because I was actually in a documentary, and I know how shitty those can turn out. Like people that make these, like they like don't really have, and not to blame, like I see. So part of me, I guess, is like blaming the documentary more than like the people that are in it, because I just feel like they don't know what they're doing. And I would like to do, from my channel, I would like to do these kinds of things myself, where I talk to people head on, and like give them the chance to kind of actually like Evan, instead of going to Good Morning America, let's talk and let's give people what they actually want to hear, because I feel like they often give very canned responses to everything. And yeah, I mean, I see where your criticisms are coming from. I mean, I have different ones, but
which is great. I want you to share. I mean, I'm just asking you points, and you're right. Good Morning America, that's a good one. I'm going to go switch to The View though right away. And one of the people involved who I find to be a terribly unreliable witness in every way is Ashley Morgan Smithline. And she's all over the map. It's really hard for me to say what with her, but going on The View with the lawyer who happens to be a lawyer to somebody else who happens to be a bigger name than you are, who happens to be worth more money in a lawsuit. Those I would think Edwin would be wanting to collect some receipts. He'd want to be checking that out and going, oh, okay, that's interesting. So wait, you share the same lawyer? Wait, oh, you all know each other? Wait, oh, that's interesting. And then now we've got, oh, so you fired your lawyer in April, but he didn't actually leave. He's representing you, but then he says he wants to get rid of you. And okay, so that's just one person. So have you looked into that at all?
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, and actually, I think this is a good time to make the clarification, because I mean, I don't know how people view things. I think because I did the conversation with Colonel Kurtz, a lot of people have commented on my video like, oh, this guy is a simp for the women. Everything is like, it's not. The thing is too, like when I started covering in 2020, there was no lawsuit, and people like oh, this guy says he doesn't keep up with lawsuits. Like, no, I keep up with that. I mean, it's just I don't feel comfortable enough, because like I haven't read everything, so I haven't made content on it, so I don't feel like I need to make cemented like opinions on it. But of course I know the basics. I know what you're talking about. But like there's just so much that's been said about him that I don't think the world revolves around the lawsuit. Like I've been looking at this before the lawsuit even existed, and there's like over a dozen women, many have not sued. But as far as like Ashley Lindsay Morgan, like there's there's what is there to defend there, right? I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not saying, that's not to say she's lying or anything. It's just like right now it's like very strange. Like at first I was confused, because if the defense is that you're hacked, it doesn't pan out when all of a sudden there's also text messages. Because I could maybe understand the Instagram getting hacked, but then all of a sudden there's text messages and WhatsApp messages, you know what I mean? And I also watched, I don't know if it was on your channel or I don't know, I saw Legal Bites at one point talking about how she was kind of acting confused at the way that the lawyer was talking, like as if he was gaslighting her. But I don't even think that he was gaslighting her into like being confused that he was getting fired. If anything, I think something's going on with her. I think I don't think she's in the right state of mind to be suing anybody if she's like, talking to him like that, like the lawyer, like it was such a bizarre exchange to go back and forth and read. I'm like, ooh, girl, what?
Yeah. So, and that's why I'm going to stick with my statement, unreliable witness, because I think that's a fair statement.
I think at this point, it's just like, oof. I mean, good luck to whatever's moving forward. Like when I see that, I'm like, and it's unfortunate because it could have happened, but like at this point it's just you dug yourself so deep and yeah, I don't know what can be done with that.
Okay, and fair enough. Now you're talking about all the women. I'm going to go back to Michael Jackson with you for a minute because I think it's an interesting parallel. Do you feel Michael Jackson was in fact guilty and slid by? The court system screwed up?
Oh, no.
Well, why not? There were so many witnesses, Edwin.
What witnesses? Nobody witnessed anything. Everybody
knows that Michael did it.
Wade Robson's family members. That's everybody in the whole movie.
Anyway, I'm just saying that is a pretty common narrative. I could go right now and reach out and bring on an FBI agent that I know who's been on before who will tell you absolutely that he's guilty. I could do that. Do I think that he is? I don't think so. I'm going to go with the court. The court said he was not guilty. So that to me is, I'm still in America. I do believe in that. Same way I think Amber Heard is guilty, I'll say Michael Jackson's not guilty. Court decided. Mm-hmm. But does that give you pause? Because you have, again, all the noise, and Michael Jackson has a far friendlier family image than Marilyn Manson, last time I checked.
And that actually worked against him, ironically enough. Why did he go to those children's hospitals and help all those children out throughout the years? Oh, well, ill intentions, I guess.
It's like all those Boy Scout leaders, they're sneaky. Yeah. So I just want to put that out there because I think getting caught up in the numbers can be difficult, and that's why I'm literally parsing each person. Like, okay, Ashley Morgan Smith, we're settled on that. Toss that one out, right? Not reliable enough to draw any kind of conclusion. Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, and also, of course, Michael Jackson is long concluded, and to try to resuscitate that was just ridiculous, especially with all the complications with Wade Robson, and especially, but and even with Amber Heard, that's easier to judge as well because of the way she responded. And I think I'm gonna be obviously covering this, and I'll be more more on it when it does go to court. I think that's when it'll definitely pick up more interest for sure. And if it does go to court, it seems like they're still trying to kind of dismiss it, or at least on Evan's side. So it should be interesting. But
that's the part that people don't understand. Right. Marilyn Manson is suing them.
Yeah,
and I think that's an important factor too. Mm-hmm. He is saying, "Oh hell no, you have defamed me." Mm-hmm. So there's no charges going against him from Evan Rachel Wood,
right?
At all. That statute of limitations, or it never happened. You choose. Doesn't really matter. He's not facing any charges. So really, by his going out and suing her, he's putting himself in the spotlight in actuality. Yeah. And you don't have to believe him, but I will say that it is a point to his favor that he is setting himself up for the scrutiny. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, for sure.
Did it surprise you? I mean, because I'm giving you, I'm trying to give you sight because you did the video in 2020. All this is after it, I found that the fact that everybody came out on February 1st, that's troubling.
Yeah. See, I think that maybe in a way, because the pendulum has kind of shifted really strongly from one side to the next, right? I think with there's been previous cases, I guess Bill Cosby is one that stands out, where a lot of women kind of came out, and even in the R. Kelly, they had the documentary, they came out in groups. Maybe they had that kind of in their head to think work in their favor, which now is looking to work against their favor, kind of thing. But I mean, I think some of them, let's see, there was, because there's two Ashleys. There's Ashley Lindsay Morgan and Ashley Walters. Ashley Walters and Evan, and I think
Esme.
Yeah, I think Esme. I think those three, they already knew and were friends with each other through Marilyn Manson at some point. So
Elma Gore was, I think Elma Gore came into the scene. I don't recall. I think she was dating Evan Rachel Wood's assistant, and then upgraded to Evan Rachel Wood.
Whoa, I didn't know that one.
So she kind of came in that way too. And Elma Gore, I know she's your friend and all, but
she's not my friend. I only talked to her once. I did reach out to her afterwards. She didn't respond.
I have issues with Elma. I feel
that's fine.
This is just I have a weird background, a weird channel. I mean, I'm sure you look through it and you're like, okay, this, you said you wanted to look at things differently. I do body language analysis, state analysis. So I try to look at things differently to a point. I mean, I'm not, I know all the best in the world. I'm not. But I have
How's mine
decent
so far?
instincts. You don't know what to think. You haven't known the entire time. But
Okay, what? Wait, but I'm like an honest individual.
you're being very cool. I mean,
Okay.
it's pretty relaxed. I don't think any issues with
I
that.
am thirsty.
Okay, well, good. That's a sign for something.
Well, no, okay. Talking to new people does get me nervous, so that's kind of the thing. I'm like, oh, my mouth gets dry. That's the only thing.
Oh, that's cool. Anyway,
It's a nervous excitement, like because I said like, and like okay, part of it does factor in that, I got like hundreds and hundreds of comments that are just pummeling into me, which I'm used to. I'm used to getting a lot of internet, in the comments, and everybody has their assumptions, and like it's just like I'm happy. If anything, it's a good thing that I appreciate you bringing me on, and I'm happy to open the dialogue. And I hope that if anything, people can take away is like I've never said that Marilyn Manson is guilty of X, Y, and Z. I'm not like I'm willing to listen to everything and talk about everything. I'm openly critical of everything. I guess so far on this live streaming channel, I have done a couple live streams, kind of just because I get it. I get the skepticism for sure, 100%. And it's just that part of Colonel Kurtz's interviews kind of feel like a little bit fluff, like to make Manson look like extra, like saint-like, right? Like actually, like, oh, he could never do no wrong, And I'm like, okay, come on, like he's admitted and said things that he's done,
sure.
not in the
He's probably
allegations.
he could very well be a dick. He
Right.
could be a complete nightmare.
Yeah, like his own bandmates and stuff.
Dude, that's a hard business. How the hell do you make you don't make it necessarily being gentle and kind all the time.
Right.
So I'm nowhere saying that Marilyn Manson is a nun, for God's sake.
Right.
Sure, but the problem is somebody could be an asshole. They could be a jerk. They could be a nightmare to deal with, and that doesn't mean they assault women.
Right.
We're talking a whole different spectrum here,
and that's the crazy part. Also, I mean, I'm specifically talking about like some of the things that I've seen that I'm like cross examining, right? Like some of these interviews that I'm watching, I'm like, why are they making him seem like he wasn't what he said he was, and everybody around him said he was? Like it's. But yeah, no. As far as like what we're talking about, yes, it makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, I think what was you brought up like West Borland? I'm like, okay, so
yeah, but
he hates him, and they had a shitty relationship, and Manson may not have even conducted business well. I don't know any of that, but I don't see a woman assaulted in that mix.
Yeah, and but like also beyond West Borland, because I mean, I guess okay, so the argument with West Borland and Dan Cleary, right? Because they're like in the business, and they're the only people who have kind of, I guess, loosely corroborated for the women. I guess anything to further that point is that I feel like when you're in like the business, the music industry, when you're in a certain kind of industry, you kind of hear open secrets or things from other people that would incline you. Because speaking out like that, it's kind of risky in its own thing, right? Like you get into YouTube space, like say you hear something about another YouTuber that you've collaborated with, you won't share it, but you kind of know it and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I approach it as well. But like Marilyn Manson's also been sued by like 3 of his bandmates,
But hold on, you were subject of a documentary, and I've heard rumors that there might have been some bullshit about you. It may not be true. Yeah, and so I don't know. I'm just saying that there's rumors, right? And it's very hard to parse. So yes, in the industry, there's those open secrets, but sometimes the closer you get to sources, you go, "Oh shit, is this confession through projection?" Because I see a lot of that too.
Yeah.
Somebody you're like, oh, okay. Oh, wow. And they're telling you a story, and they're doing this, and they're doing this. And it's like, no, you're actually doing it.
Yeah.
And you see that in everybody else. So you got to be careful on that.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I like to think that I'm very careful. I like to definitely vet things. And, if I'm wrong on something, I like to talk about it. I like to invite people to call in, or like for my live shows, I'm like, oh, call in if you disagree, let's hear you out, and have some conversations. I think this is great. I don't know how often you have people that disagree, I don't even know to what point we really disagree, but this is a good conversation to have. I think this is very great. I love I think this is like the most productive thing to have, because oftentimes people do live in like their little echo chambers, and I do practice like reading outside, and I'm like I try to question things, and so I'm all about that.
Well, part of what I want to put out there, and because I've actually known you only since Homeboy Evan or Homeboy's Got Receipts or whatever, and I didn't feel like, even though you were throwing things out there, I didn't feel like you were absolutely certain in your position.
Right.
And that just kind of came through to me. Even talking about Colonel Kurtz or anything else, I have not found you conveying a forceful feeling about it. Mm-hmm. And whenever I see that, I'm like, okay, this is somebody who's still kind of undecided.
Right. That's great.
Leaning, but undecided. Like, by the way, I'm not completely decided that he didn't do anything. I am just saying every time I look, I find a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense.
And I mean, that's kind of how I have to do it, because there are other people who you said there's a dozen or what, I don't know. I haven't talked to them. I haven't seen their story yet, but I'm going to go with just the basic law of, innocent until proven guilty, and just keep going down that line, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good.
So now we've gotten into the documentary, which we both agree is garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you find something redeemable in it, I don't.
See, and that's like, I was just hoping for more. I mean, she's got the chance to bring up better receipts or something, right? Because especially if she wasn't planning on suing, I feel like there could have been more to add, or at the very least, if there wasn't more to add, then there could have been more to trim out some of that fat. For example, like, I don't know why we needed to see the Hanukkah scene. Like, that was kind of, but yeah,
could it be that there was nothing there to have? Is it possible?
Well, I think the Hanukkah scene was like in the same kind of part where she eventually did the typing of the Instagram. So I guess it was just extra. Like, it just felt like excess fat. Like, just trim it,
Is it, or is it to establish that she is in fact very Jewish and he is considered anti-Semitic? No, I mean, because there are those claims that he is a World War II fan of certain German figures that we can't say on YouTube.
Well, if that was the goal, I don't think it really panned out as much as they would have liked, because it wasn't close enough. I don't think, because the type of audience that would have made that connection wouldn't have made it, because it wasn't close enough. You know what I mean? Because yeah, it just was too far. It was like in the end. So I get what you're saying, but yeah.
Unless they wanted to reference back to it. Look. See, it's established. Well, I've spent a narrative after the fact. Sometimes it doesn't have to be immediately there. A lot of this that I study is like influence. So it's like you plant it here. Yeah, it's separated. But then now you've got in the mind, oh, she's Jewish.
See, so that's implying that the producers had that in mind, and maybe they did. I would love, like, I love transparency. I would love to talk to the producers. I would love to see what happened back there, because I mean, I know what happened in the documentary that I was in, and I'm like, y'all told me something different, and I called them out. I'm like, this is not what, like I made a YouTube video. I was like, this is messed up. But yeah, you start to learn that you can't really trust much media sources, or I guess, public media. It's hard to. You really do have to question it. So I think we are in line with that, at least. Like, what was the intent? We can't really know.
So now, and I am just going by what I'm observing and what's out there, because obviously, even though I don't trust media at all, sadly, I have to use them as a source, because sometimes that's the only information I have.
Yeah.
And so then I try to quantify everything that's coming in and say, okay, let me read the entire article, because the headline says one thing, but paragraph 6 contradicts the headline. So now I know about this source. What sources are you using, or have you shifted since your initial video at all?
Well, what I like to look at is like the actual filings themselves, because like that is, there's no opinion, there's no slant at all. So, and see, and I obviously the issue also is that a lot of the YouTubers and just accounts that cover this are like very for Manson and slanted the other way. So it's hard to consume it without having that slant already in there. So I'm kind of like, okay, let me just wait until I actually can focus. Because when I cover a topic, I'm also covering various topics at a time. So when I cover a topic, I want to make sure I'm ready to get into it. this past weekend I was talking about a different, like a YouTuber, and so I'm like, okay, it's Monday, let's get back into Manson. So
Manson Monday.
Yeah, Manson Monday. That's a good name. It's every Monday. So yeah, so basically, like, because I planned to do a follow-up last year, but then I got stuck in my head and didn't end up uploading at all. But when I was doing that, I was looking at his statement, his Instagram, and then I was looking at the other people's statement, and then I make my own opinions, and then I look at I start going down like the connections. Okay, so he said this, and then I kind of just like go based off of that, similar to how you're doing as well. Like, okay, so this connection, because yeah, I think it's productive to have like these criticisms, these scrutinies on all ends, because not all ends, like, because for example, okay, so for even the Manson lawsuit, one thing that popped out is the way that they called it a swatting, when it's not. I mean, if it's a swatting, I don't understand why not even TMZ called it a swatting. Like, typically in swatting, they go inside your house.
What would you call it though? I mean, if it's a false report,
I mean, they called it a wellness check.
But this is a hard one too, because a wellness check often can lead into a swatting type of scenario. Because what wellness are you checking? You're checking, oh, somebody may be in trouble in there.
Right.
Somebody may be harmed. So the police in general are going in at high alert. So I actually took to calling it a quote baby swatting because of you. I even said, okay, well, call it a swatting, baby swatting, whatever. If it is a false report, it is on the swatting spectrum, if you will. Right?
Yeah.
And
for sure,
maybe there wasn't a SWAT team coming in, with the guns blazing, but there is always that potential threat. If a person opens the door, they're not expecting something, or they surprise the police. That's why false reports. So we'll call it a false report, possibly, right? If they found nothing.
Yeah, for sure. Because and here's the thing, like, I'm in the YouTuber space, and I know like a lot of people like that listen to this, like, they're very adamant about being a swatting, but like in the YouTuber space, it's very common to have like swattings or wellness checks. For example, like this YouTuber, maybe she exceeds the YouTuber space. Her name is Eugenia Cooney, and she's struggles with eating disorder, and a lot of people have often called like wellness checks on her, and I've never seen that being called a swatting, but like, yeah, very often people call the police on her house, to see if there's anything wrong. She's being abused, all this kind of stuff, right? So this kind of happens often, and I don't really see it be labeled that, and any of the times that I've seen it, unless of course the police steps in or they have the SWAT gear, all that kind of stuff. And then
it depends on the wellness check. Again, is it a wellness check that somebody could be a threat to themselves? Right. Like you're describing a wellness check, it's like, we want to make sure she ate or didn't eat or whatever. Not a concern. But is this a wellness check on, hey, is that wife okay, or is she getting attacked?
Yeah, and to put it back in context, the way the filing described it, they described it as a swatting, and then they even defined it like, oh, this is how dangerous it can be. So it's like, but then it continues on to say that, it feels it. So it felt like it was worthy of being like putting at least a question mark, because what I thought it was also kind of neat of the filing was that, because I've covered some lawsuits throughout my YouTube videos too, and I don't typically see this in the filings. They actually provide like citations at the bottom. They actually had like hyperlinks and stuff. Like, oh, that's kind of neat. So it's like when you see that, it wasn't there. But yeah, that's one of my critiques.
Okay, so we can actually agree. Maybe it's a scale question, but my argument would be, if it's a false report, it's a false report, and that's evil.
Sorry, I was gonna say also like, it's not uncommon for like lawsuit filings to like kind of not amplify, but like make things sound grave, obviously, to sell their point. So that is also not even like it's not even like a grave thing against Manson or anything of the sort.
Well, exactly. And again, though, it all goes down to this. If it was a legitimate police report, then you're right. No, there's no swatting. If it's a false report, then give it a name, but it's still a false report.
Right. And of course, also, if it is indeed a report called in by Ilma, like it states in the lawsuit, then of course that is even bigger worthy of scrutiny as well.
Yes. Well, and Ilma comes up again. Ilma.
Oops. My friend. I'm kidding.
Yeah, she is your friend. No,
not my friend.
Well, I mean, is she your only direct source, or did you have other direct sources who were involved?
Oh, as far as people I've talked to, I've not talked to anybody involved in the lawsuit, but would be fun if I said yes. Would I have my phone taken into the court? That'd be funny.
It would get you clicks.
Yeah. No, that sounds stressful, man. Not the good kind of funny.
You could be like that umbrella guy.
Like, it's interesting because literally, like, I guess I don't know if it's because I'm like the minority opinion, right? Like, because I haven't seen too many people. There's like another YouTuber that I've seen but not too many people that have do the kind of skepticism of Manson's case, or just kind of like, throw some like question marks there. But because of that, I've had people like accuse me of talking to not Marilyn Manson, to Evan Rachel Wood and all this. I'm like, I've never, how, what? Like, it's interesting to see like the little conspiracies being made about that when I have like, I don't know where they come out of thin air.
Well, I mean, if people don't know something, they're going to have conjecture. Like,
yeah,
I can tell you right now, I have not talked to anyone. I mean, I haven't talked to Lindsay Usich. I've not talked to Marilyn Manson at all. The dude wouldn't even know I existed, I'm sure. I don't think Lindsay knows I exist. I've talked to people, I think, who claim to have talked to them or to her, but I don't know that they did or didn't. Right. So again, I'm just going by what I see, and a lot of it is court filings, because court filings, there is a degree of being truthful. Now you can, obviously present your best truth, but you best not be lying, or you're in deep shit. Let's be honest. So if I'm going to go to any source, I'm going to go to that. And what I find remarkable, and circling back to Ilma, and befuddling, is a lot of these claims kind of tie into a manufacture of information and an FBI letter, things of that sort. And I didn't pull up all the evidence, to have on hand or whatever, the court filings, because I just wanted to talk it out. And we can always go back and revisit and look at it. But she actually tweeted claiming copyright to all the material that they had on her for manufacturing stuff, which I find to be an odd choice.
Was it the one she deleted?
I think she did delete it, but people do screenshot them, and
of course.
They have it. It is in the file.
At least she knew to delete it though, because I'm like, what are you thinking? Like,
I don't know if you had seen that, but it is.
I saw it. That's why I was like, because I'm pretty sure she like tweet that one, and there was another one that I saw she deleted. So like, I mean, I keep up with a lot of it. I'm like, oh my gosh. So once I actually dig into it, of course, like I guess people haven't seen my criticisms of that, because that's not really what I'm focusing on. But it doesn't mean that I don't like, I don't. I of course I see it and I can call it out, no problem,
But she's the fulcrum. I mean, if you really break down the entire case, you have Ilma Gore, Evan Rachel Wood, Ashley Walters ties them all together. It's very interesting little tie. Everybody's there. And Ilma Gore gets with Ashley Walters. Ashley Walters is his assistant, so she has everybody's phone number, everybody's information to contact and say, hey, by the way, hey, by the way, hey, by the way. Oh, and here, we've got this checklist that'll help you out with symptoms. And by the way, I've had a psychiatrist come on here. By the way, the psychiatrist I had come on here believes them, but he still had issues with them.
What is the source that Ilma Gore like conjectured everything and like told him what to say, or like the checklist and everything?
Oh, this is pure conjecture on my part.
Oh, okay. So you're okay.
100%. I feel that Ilma Gore has a little bit of an interesting history behind her. And she may have even inspired good old Juicy what? Juicy Smollett.
Oh, Juicy. Okay. She inspired him? Or she was inspired by him?
I would say that she maybe inspired him, because remember, she did a wicked painting of Donald Trump and wound up with a black eye because, the MAGA people are worried about that, chasing her down. And within a year or so, Juicy managed to find himself supposedly attacked. It's Jussie Smollett, but I like Dave Chappelle's version better. I'm going with Dave. So coincidentally, you have literally almost a nice little mirror image there. And I think by all accounts of anybody with any kind of intellectual integrity whatsoever will say that he did a hoax. He was convicted even. So I feel safe saying that. I can't defame him. He was convicted. He's a hoaxer. There we go. Got a sentence to back me up. Same way I can say Amber Heard is a liar. She lost. Court says she's a liar. I win. I suspect that Ilmagore's a bit opportunistic, and I am troubled by the relationship with her and her sister, as an example.
On like just her end or both ends, because like I guess there's a history there too.
Yeah. There's definitely history there. But it's really dark and really ugly. And I've been, not directly, but one step removed in contact with her sister.
Oh, really?
And I kind of feel terrible. And I will be open. She lost the restraining order case. But there are some definite questions on that. I'm going to have a video on that sometime down the road.
Oh, okay, interesting.
But
I'm definitely very curious about it. I mean, it must take a lot to like want to go against your sister in a lawsuit like this, right? So I'm very curious about that for sure.
A twin, for God's sake. I mean,
yeah, exactly. A twin.
I guess you've got the evil twin situation.
There's so many rabbit holes to this whole thing, So I'm like, I'm waiting for it to develop more. And like, honestly, what I'd be interested in is like hearing, like, I want to hear sound bites. I want to see videos of people talking, because I think that'll be more, especially for someone like Ilmagore, who is like, people are thinking she's the source of this. I want to hear her talk about it. So I'm very curious for that to develop. Yeah, because that's when I think we'll be able to really make up. Because I mean, like, that's how it was for someone like Amber Heard, especially. Like, you hear her talk and you see her facial expression. It's kind of like, ooh, like going on to a TV show like a week just after.
Not everybody's Amber Heard, though, dude. I mean, honestly, Amber Heard is like remedial body language 101. She has micro expressions like a pinball machine. I mean, she's, and I'm not trying to be mean to her, because I actually feel sorry for Amber Heard.
Yeah, I do too. It's hard not to. At this point, it's almost like, stepping on rakes constantly. It's like,
well, there's that. Oh, I got a super chat. Thanks for, here you go. Yeah, thanks for coming on and being open. So I totally agree with this. But yeah, Amber Heard, it's like, I hate to always draw the comparison, because they can't really be compared. One, there's just so much more meat to this thing.
Well, yeah. Oh, I agree. I don't think there's a comparison either. I think, yeah, there's so much differing things throughout this entire case. And I almost feel like it's lazy to just be like, oh, Amber Heard again. It's like let's actually pay attention to details, that's a good point.
So yeah, and it also simplifies, because again, there's all these separate cases. But again, I haven't found one yet that is quite compelling enough. Let's go to Esme Bianco. Do you think she was human trafficked?
Esme Bianco?
Yeah.
That's a very difficult case to prove as well.
Well, usually you're not human trafficked with a first-class ticket across the sea to go work at a job.
Well, the thing
you have to apply to get the, the immigration status or the visitation status to get here.
Yeah. I suppose the argument would be if it's under false pretenses, which is like, yeah, it's you're promised something else, and then all of a sudden it's not at all what you were promised, and then you feel entrapped. So I guess if we're going under her narrative that she was flown over, they were gonna work on a music video, and it was gonna facilitate her visa and all this stuff. So it seems very compelling, and then it turns out to be the opposite, and becomes torturous, and the other things. Then that would be the case, right?
But that's not trafficking. Especially she's facilitating her visa, which shows a desire to get here. Trafficking somebody is to bring them and trap them without they're having any recourse or any escape or anything else. She wanted to be here. It's really difficult to prove, because I think there's not a lot compelling there.
Well, so trafficking, because I feel like trafficking humans can like include like the promise of a job, like even in smaller cases, like, oh yeah, we'll come over, get you a job, and then all of a sudden they're enslaved or stuff like that.
But what they typically do, in a typical situation like that, well, let's say you have an Eastern European, because it happens a lot there, right?
Mhm.
And you say, okay, you're going to go to America to work at this location, and then they go. But when they get here, they actually are put into some kind of servitude that I can't discuss, obviously, because of YouTube. And one of the first thing they do is they take their passport.
Right.
So now
right.
they're trapped in this situation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Esme Bianco was not. Last time I checked, she's going back and forth to England, all over the place. I don't see any. It's a pretty strong exaggeration here. Trying to.
I see. I guess that's why maybe, and I'm no expert, but I guess that's the difference, because it's human trafficking versus, like, I guess human trafficking does imply like human slavery, which is like, you are trapped. And I guess for a period of time she was trapped, or she felt trapped. I don't know, but and it does happen a lot with even models and stuff, and like, the promise of, then they are flown into LA and stuff. But yeah, I guess it's the human trafficking. It's definitely, I feel like stuff like that, like the human trafficking, is not going to be an easy thing to, like, these are the things that I think are going to be very difficult to prove in court, like the human trafficking, like that's going to be difficult, especially the arguments with like the repressed memories. I understand it's going to be difficult, because it is very new as far as I've seen. Like, these kinds of cases are very novel, so I'm curious to see it play out. And I'm seeing, that's the thing, that one, especially that case, I'm not sure how developed it is. I don't know what kind of arguments have been made for Esme, which I'm curious to see. Have there been any, or has it been?
Her lawyer just stated it, and that's the problem I have with a lot of this too. They were groomed. They were this. They were that. And you actually pointed that out. How they sound really similar. Let me point that out. They do sound very similar, Edwin. Absolutely. And I did have Dr. Shaham Das on, who is a clinical psychiatrist out of England, and he's a professional who testifies in court. And what I like is he actually pretty much said, yeah, I believe him. And I said, okay, was that your default? And he goes, well, yeah, kind of, because whenever I'm doing a case, they're usually, I'm supporting them. And that's the case. But he did state that it is very problematic when they're using the terms. He agreed with me. You don't say, oh, I was groomed. You would describe, they did this and this and this and this. And Dr. Shaham Das would write down grooming.
Yeah.
You don't diagnose it, you describe it.
Right.
And if you listen to all the interviews, and they repeat over and over, they're just telling you this is what happened. Like, it's the result or the diagnosis, versus just give me the facts. Describe the scenario to me, please.
Yeah.
Not too much detail to be gross, but just literally put it out. Another issue, and this is where he, over the interview, it's one of those, I hope people watch the whole thing, I pointed out, what about repressed memories? That's a huge problem, right?
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. Repressed memories are so controversial. There are psychologists, psychiatrists who absolutely don't agree, don't believe in them at all. Like, it's 100% bullshit. And that led into the satanic panic, and we never want to talk about it. And then there are others who say it's possible. Now, let's not get, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. But they are rare. And it's kind of a matter of saying, okay, could one of them have repressed memories? That's possible. It's kind of rare. Can a second one have repressed memories too? Okay, it's possible. But now it's starting to get a little bit more rare here. Okay, now
it was two
we
of them,
have a
right?
third. Yeah, that's two. No, and then we have a third one.
Third one? Okay, I thought it was two.
Ashley Morgan Smith lying, Evan Rachel Wood, Esme Bianco, all have thrown out repressed memory claims. And I'm just saying, it starts to kind of be like, really? And it is very helpful to maybe access your repressed memories if you have checklists and group sessions where you can discuss what may or may not have happened to you. I'm just stating it could be an issue. And I don't know if it's 100% true, but memories can be created. As an example, how many times have you seen he had a gun? He had a gun. He had a gun. And then when they actually go find out, oh, they had a cell phone. But you can get something focused in your mind, or somebody asks you the question, it can get injected. Another case was there was a study done where they took pictures of people and they photoshopped them, like, as a kid, on, I think, like a hot air balloon. But they were never on the hot air balloon.
Like
but then they mix it together, and the people actually put together an entire day and scenario that fit it, because that's what we do. Humans we're wet work, man. We're not very reliable.
Right.
We can be influenced, not just Brian Williams.
See, so I feel like right there I get where it started, but then it went to the connection of the checklist. I'm like, well, okay, now that's kind of stretching, because I understand like the skepticism and the criticism for sure. But like, so the checklist, I don't know if it was so much a checklist as much as like a facility. I don't really know. I would have questions. See, because this is why I like to wait, because I don't understand. But I don't see it as a checklist as much as, I guess, like they kind of compiled like many stories from many different people, or so that's what they're claiming. If we're going by what they're saying, they compiled stories from many different women, right? And that's what they were kind of the common factors. So they're like, okay, was this you? Was this you? Was this you? And so like, for example, with Esme, she was already friends with some of them, but I don't believe Ashley Lindsay Morgan was. So like, I guess maybe it could work with that example, but I feel like to convolute everybody to like they banded together and they all kind of agreed.
Well, a checklist should never be appropriate at all. When the police walk up to you and you're filling out a report because your car got broken into, right? Do they have a list of multiple choice questions? Did they break the left window or right window? Did they slash your tire? Did they scratch the door? Did they break the... No. Or did they just say, hey, Edwin, what happened?
I don't know. I never had that happen to me, but when you go to a doctor, they ask a bunch of checklists for sure.
Well, they ask you if you have these pre-existing conditions.
Yeah. And like how...
And that's before you even walk in. That's a pre-existing condition. But then when they come to you and they say, okay, tell me what's wrong. They don't give you a list of options, which automatically, when you say, here's 5 possibilities, you've just now ruled out 20, because you're limiting this focus to put the focus on these fewer choices. And that's problem. That's a giant problem. Again, if we're trying to, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to get to the truth, or are we trying to get to a conclusion? And the conclusion is an accusation. And this is the stuff that really bothers me. It's like, if we argue from a conclusion, we've got a giant problem. I want to go all the way back and say, okay, so tell me what happened.
Yeah.
What happened? Wide open. No, anything else.
And I guess the reason why I also like the idea of kind of letting it simmer is because, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't given it too much thought, but like, I feel like there is something. What is there? Like, I would like to know, like, what is it? Like, what is their explanation? Because maybe it isn't as deep, maybe it is, but like, we have to. I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait to hear what they have to say. Basically, I want it to move because it's like, it is all. Until then, it kind of feels like we're just kind of panning out, writing the episode for them, where it's like we haven't seen what the show is yet, because it feels like a show.
Well, it can be, and a lot of people are. They're asking questions like, okay, Evan Rachel Wood, why? I'm sure that you've asked that. You're like, look she's very famous, she's successful, blah, blah, blah. Why would she ever do that? Is that a question you have?
Why would she ever like come out with her name?
With this kind of claim about Marilyn Manson? Why would she make that? She doesn't get the money out of it. She has no reason whatsoever. If I'm going to steel man the argument, I would say that would be a question right up front. What would be the point of her doing that? Why would she come out? And I actually came to a conclusion that may answer it. And it was in Phoenix Rising.
It was what?
And it was in Phoenix Rising.
Oh, okay.
At one point, it was in the second part, she talked about how she went from being an A-list actress to a whore.
Uh-huh.
And she got thrashed. Now, I don't know if this is the case. I'm just saying it's a possible case. Have you ever heard of, I think the name is Emmett Till? There are
Don't think.
cases of, and it's especially happened in the South, for example, where women have been in relationships with, shall we say, men that are not accepted by their families.
Oh,
And they sometimes will lie about that relationship and say that it was the R word. And this has happened in the past, and a lot of it has come through, sadly, some racism, things like that. It is possible because Evan Rachel Wood, her profile is getting really high now. And she's just closer to an A-list actress than she was in 2006 through 10 or whenever that was. Sometimes you want to clean up your past a little bit. And if you weren't in control, and the reason why I say this is the other thing you have even said, yeah, that is kind of weird, is how she harps on, I was underage. And she was not underage.
right.
She was 18. She was underage for alcohol, if that was going to be her argument. But she is playing it in a fashion like she was a teenager, 15, and taken advantage of. Now, I will fully admit that I personally, I'm not attracted to women who are much younger than me personally, but that doesn't make it an underage situation. Right. And by constantly saying that over and over and over, it abdicates agency from her behalf, puts it on his, and she doesn't have to take any responsibility. So it is a way to potentially whitewash something that she may find embarrassing or not like.
Yeah. See, so for me, I feel like I think that's kind of like, I don't really see that as much because it's kind of like, I don't know how long this must have troubled her to be ashamed of her past. Like who is judging her that it's really affecting her, right? Because that would rely on her being embarrassed by her past as much as like what happened to her. So I guess that would be pretty major if she's like willing to lie over like embarrassment that happened to her. Because yeah, I guess you're trading one or the other, right? Like I'm embarrassed of my past as like when I was a teenager till my early 20s with Manson. Like that was all like one impactful embarrassment that I want to remake. Now that she's much older and is a mother, because she's had a pretty fruitful career once she ended with him too. Like she kind of changed things around, and I don't even think people know her anymore, at least as Marilyn Manson's ex. Or
no,
anything.
She was in True Blood and things like that.
So like, yeah, I guess for me objectively, it's hard for me to see that, but it would be an interesting question to see her answer. And I don't know. I think I don't know. I think I wonder what kinds of answers she would be willing to answer, and like it would be on me video and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. To me, I struggle seeing that because I feel like it's kind of a stretch to really want to like go back and be so ashamed of your past that you're like, I'm gonna, paint this man as the worst. Because also, isn't that also kind of connected to an influence from Ilma again, like, or does she come up with it herself? It's like.
I actually do personally have a feeling, and again, I'm very willing to say this is 100% projection. I'm not going to say something's a fact. It's like, this is speculation. Okay. This is just me talking out my butt. I don't know for sure, but I feel like Ilma Gore moved into the scene and she influenced things.
Right. Yeah. I've heard it.
Ilma Gore is from a very, very troubled family. That is all fact. They lost their parents early. I think her brother is in prison, or was, maybe still is. They have a relationship with the sister. There's a long history there. And Ilma comes across as somebody who's a bit of a survivor and can manipulate people to her ends.
See, at this point, it's either like, so we're right now weighing between either Evan got brainwashed by Manson or she got brainwashed by Ilma Gore.
Or both.
Well, both. Yeah. I mean, it could be somewhere in the middle. It could be.
Because one of her claims.
Important to emphasize. I was going to say that, sometimes details aren't as black and white. Sometimes they're not, maybe some of your theory isn't all right, but maybe some factors could be. And like, but that's the thing to remember too, because there's scrutiny to be made in everything. Like,
Well, if you look at her behavior, one thing I found really interesting, it was just striking, is the way she does, we call it the spell casting.
Evan?
Yes, when you watch her. But then I saw an interview with Manson. He's doing the same thing. So she imprinted on him. And it's very interesting, though, because there were like pictures of her with whomever she's with. She dresses like them and resembles them. Kind of similar, dare I say. Now, I did say we can't always reach Amber Heard. But in this case, Amber Heard did manage to dress the same way as Johnny Depp did the prior day.
Well, right. Yeah.
Hair up, down, hair down, earring, suit style, harsher, lighter. It's just a very interesting thing. And Evan Rachel Wood, through her relationships, if you look at it, it's like, wow, it kind of almost becomes siblingish. And so is it possible that she may have troubles? And by the way, Phoenix Rising implied that extremely. I think her own brother said that there is no knowing what was actually real and what was actually false with her growing up, if I recall, something like that, that she imprints on whomever she's around.
That detail by the brother, that was said in relation to both of them because they were in theater a lot, and that wasn't said about she couldn't tell. That was just said in like they were both in theater. Unless I'm wrong, which I said this in the video. Nobody corrected me, so I mean I could stand corrected, but like I rewatched it, and the part that you're talking about it, he was talking about when they were in theater so much, like they were just used to being in fantasy, but it wasn't like she couldn't tell what was different, like reality or fantasy. Like it was just more so saying when they got into acting kind of stuff. So. Just to correct that part.
Okay, I guess I don't know. I'd have to look again, but I
do think she's someone that is like influenced by someone she's attracted to, and that's very, very real for sure. Which the way you're painting it is obviously working against her favor, but it obviously it could also work in her favor in that pictures of her like. He was a strong influence against her or on her, and a lot of the things like he made her do things and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of how it could work in that favor. Like he made her dress a certain way. He had rules for her, et cetera, that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, the whole dressing thing is so interesting because again, she dresses. I'm going to toss that out pretty quickly because she dresses kind of mirroring everybody. Yeah. So. Why?
Right. Yeah. That's fair.
It doesn't make sense.
That's fair. Especially, yeah. And of course, it's in I don't want to say because she was younger, but like if she's like if they're into that loving and the honeymoon stage, obviously you're more susceptible to want to do stuff too. So maybe it wasn't always like forcible kind of influence, but it's understandable to be like, oh yeah, well, I want to appeal to him. I want to appeal to the goth shock rocker. Yeah. So. There could be some discrepancies for sure. But yeah, it just goes hand in hand with like, yeah, no, your point could work in both favors, I think.
Of course it can. And by the way, they could have had a very odd, kinky, weird relationship that could have been consensual at the time. And later on, looking back, one could decide, I think maybe I was pressured into that more. Maybe I wasn't consenting at the time, even though they seemed to be. They played along and they did say it. And then later on, they're like, whoa, no, I felt unduly influenced. And this is part of why I'm saying, yeah, she could have been imprinting.
Sure.
And then you have somebody else coming along who is very manipulative, who says, oh no. Don't you know that this actually was this and this and this? And again, memories are tricky. And you start to look at it and you go, oh, that's right. Well, maybe that was this.
And I guess the points that I think that one of the few points that we could give to Evan as far as like proving herself or some of the things she says in her movie is that she does kind of show examples of how she was being love bombed by Marilyn Manson, right? So that's the thing that he was, showing her a lot of that. And
she used the term love bomb,
right?
Is it love bomb though, or is it again the honeymoon?
Yeah,
because we get a little goofy and sometimes we go overboard.
To connect that though, because we are reaching here. We're gonna reach with now it's my turn to do some speculation.
Go.
Right? Now it's my turn. So you could see that someone that is so enamored and trying to get this his partner in love with him and stuff. and he doesn't want to lose her. There was that one instance when he wanted to be with her for Christmas, and then he called her 158 times, and he cut himself all that many times. Right now, he said that 3 different times, like I believe twice in written interviews, and once, maybe even twice actually, in interviews, where he just kind of like says it nonchalantly that, yeah, I cut myself, and
I mean, okay. He has said that. I'm not going to deny he said that. Did he actually cut himself 158 times?
Here's the thing: like Marilyn Manson that's a funny part. I know you saw the video, so that's the funny part about Marilyn Manson. Like, he's such a shock rocker that he can get away with having this thing, Marilyn Manson myth, right? Did he or didn't he? But the man has posted very many pictures of not just Evan, but other partners where they are like looking like they're beat. Maybe they're not. But he did post pictures of himself cut in which he refers to that phone call. So did he? I don't know. But he posted pictures of himself with cuts on his hand and like on his things. And he referred to the phone calls. Like, this is one of the phone calls and stuff. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think it's not the craziest theory that if he's posting pictures on his MySpace back around the time and he's bragging about it in multiple interviews. And, I don't think it's the craziest thing that's saying it's pretty possible, So,
okay, well, let's explore. Like, maybe he cut himself. Do you cut himself 158 times? Do you really think?
Oh yeah, maybe not that many times, but I guess it still can.
So, and that's when we start to get in this weird, emotional blackmail.
Well, and that's just it. See, because here's the thing. Here's the interesting part that I think is worth noting. Like, we're able to make all this conjecture, all these theories against the women, but when there's theories against Manson, there's like inherent pushback, and that's what I think is unique, and it's worth looking into because. I actually pulled your video about when he was talking to that guy, and we covered that. I looked at it. It was from you that I saw that when he talked about holding the gun, because that's a very troubling video. Right.
I looked at that. I still don't have a conclusion on that, and part of it is because he's a pain in the ass in that regard. I know he was drunker than anything I've seen, or incredibly blitzed out on some substance of some kind. I don't know what it was, but yes, sure. And it's a hard.
Well, he ended up settling the lawsuit, so I feel comfortable saying it happened.
Well, settling which lawsuit? Because he countersued. So who won? Who paid?
He didn't end up countersuing. He threatened to, but didn't end up happening at all.
Okay.
The Spin magazine editor, there was no countersuit after all.
Okay, and I don't know if he actually literally did that, or he dreamed it up. And it is a weird thing where we get into some strange fantasy or not fantasy or whatever. And by the way, because the next thing that you may or may not quote, I'm not going to say that, is his book. Everybody loves to go, hey, let's talk about his book.
That's not my source.
Okay, well, and it's not a great source because, again, if you read the book, he seems kind of creepy.
Yeah.
But if you look into the book, he was creating a character, and it is true. So I admittedly say I don't know how far down which spectrum he goes on that, because I don't know the dude. I feel like if I was around him, I would get more of a vibe just naturally, but I'm not. So all I can do is conjecture. Right. However, on the book, I can say that was Neil Strauss. Mm-hmm. Neil Strauss also wrote the game. One of the main characters in the game was a person named Ross Jeffries. I've personally spoken to Ross Jeffries, who will be coming on to tell me exactly how the book is exaggerated and not exaggerated.
What is the book about? Like,
yeah, pickup artists.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
and it's pretty gross. I mean, if we step back and really look at it, it's disgusting, right?
There was a whole VH1 show, but I don't know if you ever saw it on the game, even.
I didn't. No.
Yeah. You could look into it before you have them on. It's kind of ridiculous, but yeah, VH1 used to have this really like ratchet season where they would just have all these weird shows. So they were a fun time. But I mean, as far as the that lawsuit though, like the Manson's lawyer said, it only lasted 2 seconds, and then he also said that that the plaintiff was in whole or in part to blame for the activity that happened. Mm-hmm. Because he entered that green screen knowing the risk of what could go on, like in the fight, and the editor also went to the hospital, so he had like all like he had the records of what happened. So like I feel for that case, like it's pretty cut and dry. So
have you seen the records?
What the hospital records? I mean,
Yeah, I'm curious.
like, no, I haven't seen the records, but like the court settled against Marilyn Manson. So,
Or well, no, when you say the court settled, you mean
well,
Marilyn
no, I
Manson
mean,
settled?
I'm referring to, okay, well, okay, even okay. So I haven't seen the hospital records, but like I don't, or maybe I have. I don't remember because this video is a little old. But like what I'm trying to mainly highlight is that like they're acknowledging that he was hurt, so physically. So I guess the next question would be like, how badly was he hurt? But like it is being acknowledged by Manson's team is my point here. So
yeah, sure. And if and it's not the court settled, Manson settled.
right,
Is what you're saying. Manson said, oh, okay, here's a check. Shut up, go away.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And again, he may have, don't know. Problem being on it though, that doesn't mean make him beat a woman.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. That wasn't the connection. If anything, it's more so like just like how he's unafraid to kind of just like be intimidating, and all of a sudden, like I mean that video
he profits off of it. This is the problem that I have.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I freely admit
it.
Is he puts this out there?
Myth. You can't tell when it's real where it isn't, because he kind of like puts all the smoke in there, and you can't get through the smoke. But I feel like this is one of the few times where like, okay, this is probably real. If like he's threatening, but it's all fluff, and then he ends up just settling, and then his own lawyers say, okay, it happened. I think like, because I understand like Marilyn Manson makes it so difficult to tell what is real and what isn't. Even the biggest fans don't exactly know. So it's just like how much benefit of the doubt is really fairly charitable, right? Because like I feel like there's a point where it's at least worth being skeptical, not just for like it's healthy to be skeptical towards the women, of course, but like just also on his end, just because the man makes it so easy to be like, oh, it's just Marilyn Manson, don't worry, it's just a mask, it's not real me. And that doesn't mean we can't.
And then he milks the shit out of that. He does. He milks the shit out of that. Granted, but and you were saying, okay, that's not fair. How is it he can say, oh well, this is a myth, or how can we represent? It's like partly because he freely admits that he's playing games all the time, so you really don't know where you are. He's not representing himself as pure and truthful. And I know that sounds weird.
Yes. So, I was gonna say he also admits at the same time that there is no character. He does both. He says that
I know
it's me. I am Marilyn Manson all the time.
Right.
There is no Brian Warner.
Right. It is a permanent shtick, but it's not a shtick, and it depends on the moment of whatever you're talking to him.
Right.
But he is putting that out there. So he's sort of representing himself as this unreliable witness, I guess you will, or whatever. It's very weird. Yeah. So it's very difficult to hold him up in a truthful manner because everything about him is a shadow or
exactly.
Smoke. Like he says, I am shadow and smoke.
Yeah.
Trying to grab me.
Like or we view Ashley Lindsay Morgan in that kind of sense. I feel like it's not hard to view him in a similar sense as well.
Except he's not playing. He's not playing that I am this solid, specific, definite person. They're represented as more of the truth. He is represented as more of a denial. And I know it sounds really, it's very hard to describe it because I'll be honest again, he's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Because I don't like dealing. So that's why I just start going into each of their stories. Like, I don't know if he's great, not great. There's all the different stories. I mean, I've got somebody in the chat saying he's cuddling kittens and celebrating Christmas. Which is possible. Yeah, I'm sure he does. I don't know what he does 24/7. And I think a lot of it is image. I mean, the people around him pretty much say the same thing.
Because that's the thing also to remember, like, he's a very intelligent man. Like he's I think in his own ways, he's playing like chess. Like it's like, because from my perspective, if I'm, no matter how you do it, like if you separate yourself, take away the emotion, the investment of it all, oftentimes the way he's responded isn't always the best, but this lawsuit, I feel like, is the most clever way to go. Like, be silent, play this route. This feels like the smartest way. The way
but it is his. But again, he's putting himself out there. So as soon as he said, "I'm suing your asses," then that means they can pull everything from him.
Yeah,
he is going to have to be in a deposition.
Yeah.
This is civil. So there's no escaping this.
Uh-huh.
He's going to be deposed. So that's a lot of risk for somebody who's full of it.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing out, he has to go and be questioned. Now, he could sit back, chill on his heels, say they're lying, liars. He could hire publicity teams. He could go after them in a million ways. But instead, he's saying, son of a bitch, I'm suing you. We're going to court. Court doesn't care about Marilyn Manson. It doesn't care about him and Rachel Wood. They have rules, and he's got to get his ass in a chair and get tortured by opposition lawyers.
Yeah,
That's
no
not
makeup,
a
nothing.
good move. If you're lying.
All without the makeup. Yeah.
I don't know if he has makeup or not. I mean, look at Michael Jackson, some of the testimony. He looked, very odd.
Was he wearing makeup? Well, he was wearing his wig, but
and I think he had at least mascara. So I don't know. Women
oh yeah,
questions, so why not?
Yeah, Michael Jackson. See, and that's why I'm also that's the same kind of view that I have. Also, like, it's very curious to see how the lawsuits develop with Esme and especially Ashley. But
she's out. I think that one's just gone. I don't think it's going to
Yeah,
go.
I mean,
the lawyer fired.
unless she's going to represent herself, right, or what?
Well, okay. Who did she go to say I fired my lawyer?
Her lawyer, right?
No, Howard King. She went to Manson's lawyer.
First her lawyer. Yeah, then that was, see, that's the part that's like, right, yeah. It's like, what, why? Oh, yeah. I mean, it feels like there's a lot going on there. And I don't know. Like, I feel like she's unreliable for both parties, in my opinion. Like, there's not, unless she provides like something solid, then I wouldn't want to use her as a source.
All right. Here's somebody's pointing out he has to go to court. His career's been ruined. He's had a major setback. I have a feeling he can still afford to pay groceries. He can buy groceries. He's got plenty of money to have top legal talent. I don't think they're working on a contingency because defamations are hard. So you've got to have money in your pocket to sue. And I'm going to disagree because, ironically, because Manson is a character who could be seen as evil, I don't think his career is ruined. I think it's a setback. I think he could rebuild it quietly over time. He's done a little stuff with like Kanye and whatever else. There are ways he could get back into the scene. So I'm going to respectfully disagree with E. Miller on that one. That I do not think. I think that if he's lying, he's pretty dumb about it to go this route. That is a route that you cannot control. You can control your message. You can control your publicity teams. You can control your image. You can't easily control the courtroom, not when you have an opposition who very much are going to have a say themselves.
Fair enough, yeah.
But on that note, it's actually been almost 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, any other viewer questions or anything else? This has been a pretty good talk, though.
Well, thank you. I've got a couple super chats I definitely wanted to get out, and I apologize I don't put them up right away. I want to keep the flow going, and thank you very much, Domino V. And hopefully this wasn't too torturous for you, Edwin.
No, it wasn't. It's good. It's good experience. I actually don't even have your chat open, so hopefully your chat was nice. I mean, I looked at the ones you're pulling up, so they seem good.
Yeah. Well, you can look on the right. You just switch it to.
Well, no, I mean, I don't have
private
it open, but let me see.
No, it's on StreamYard. It's over on the right. Instead of a private chat, you just click it to live, and you'll see everything.
Oh, okay.
I generally don't tell guests that because then they get distracted.
I see. Yeah, I don't want to get distracted.
I recently found a hidden R memory from 13 years ago without suggestion. Brain spotting eye position. I was suddenly terrified of me sleep and no reason. I'm sorry you've had to go through that, Bubbles. I'm really sorry about that. That does not sound good. Lisa Horror, Marilyn Manson. Edwin, why is the RW cutting herself different than Marilyn Manson cutting himself?
Well, I was referring to the emotional blackmail, like him saying, "Come here, I've been cutting myself and making it a public scene." I don't believe she did that.
I don't know.
But that was my answer. Yeah.
So let me see. What did I not ask you that I should have asked you?
Um, I think it's good. If anything, I would like to say, because I'm actually planning on doing a video addressing comments from
Mhm.
the comments that I received on Colonel Kurtz, and even like her response, because people were taking it as if we were disrespecting each other or something like that. But she did, like, and I even heard her on your show say the same, that she wanted to be grilled and stuff. And obviously you can see, like, we have opposing views, and we're not grilling each other, going after each other. Like, that wasn't supposed to be ever like something that was
No.
supposed to be. And me and Kurtz, like, we talked afterwards, like, everything's chill. So I just want to make that point clear. A lot of people kind of took that the wrong way, and maybe I also probably I'll take heat that day. I
Well, you
probably didn't
promoted
do
it because
properly.
you want to get people to watch. So it's a hard call. And by the way, Colonel Kurtz going on was a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm going after her, and she made my life super easy to come and talk to you, because ice has already been broken. You guys already did that. So major kudos, and she comported herself fantastically, in my opinion.
But yeah, let's see. Edwin doesn't seem open to make anything but making Marilyn bad, scary, mad. I guess I don't like I see. I don't try to use inflammatory language myself. I've never called him the R word or anything, or said like he's. I've kind of just like to poke lighthearted comments when I do, like, or jokes, whatever, when I do kind of poke fun at him. But I don't really like to see like he's evil. I'm just saying, like, it's possible that the Marilyn Manson myth, like, can confuse people. But I mean, either way, yeah.
I'm hoping, though, what I love in any discussion is, one, I don't expect people to agree in the end. I think it's more about looking at positions and having more thought to chew on when we leave.
Yeah, for sure. This is good. Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, but I don't know if there's anything else we can answer.
No, I think I'm gonna let's call it on this.
For sure.
Quit
And
while we're ahead.
any other time you want to have me on, I'm open to coming on. We can have any other topics or whatever.
Awesome, sounds good. Love to come on with you sometime if you ever have anything. Let me know.
For sure. Yeah, I'll obviously look at your channel more, and we'll see if I can come up with something.
All right, sounds good. And everyone, thank you very much. And I'm sorry if you thought it'd be a blood sport. I don't really do that. I like to hang out, talk, and maybe learn something. And again, thank you very much.
It's good. I appreciate